Welcome to Day AI, where we focus on the happenings on this date, historically, globally, and nationally. If you would, please hit the like and subscribe button for future notifications and updates. April 11th is a date that carries a strange duality. It is a day of creation and collapse, of liberation and tragedy, of breakthroughs that redefine humanity and failures that expose its limits. Across centuries, April 11 doesn't settle into one identity. Instead, it reflects the full spectrum of what people are capable of building and destroying. We begin in the deeper past, where empires ruled not just land, but belief, culture, and identity. In 1512, one of the most significant artistic achievements in human history was unveiled. The ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo, was revealed to the public in Rome. This was not just art, it was an overwhelming expression of human imagination, discipline, and vision. Thousands of figures stretched across the ceiling, telling stories of creation, fall, and redemption. It took years of physical strain, isolation, and relentless effort to complete. When it was finally revealed, it redefined what art could be. This moment represents something fundamental about April 11th, the idea that humans can take suffering, pressure, and limitation and turn it into something that feels almost divine. But not all April 11th moments are about creation. Many are about confrontation between power and resistance. In 1689, William III and Mary II were crowned as joint monarchs of England, Scotland, and Ireland. Their rule followed the Glorious Revolution, a shift in power that limited the monarchy and strengthened parliamentary authority. It was a turning point in the evolution of constitutional governance. Power, once absolute, was now being reshaped into something shared, negotiated, and controlled. This reflects another theme of April 11th, authority being challenged and redefined. Moving forward into the 19th century, April 11 becomes tied to conflict and identity, especially in the United States. In 1814, Napoleon Bonaparte abdicated the throne of France for the first time. After years of dominating Europe through military brilliance and ambition, his fall came not in a single dramatic battle, but through exhaustion, pressure, and the collapse of support. It marked the end of one era of European dominance and the beginning of a reshaping of power across the continent. Napoleon's story on this date is important because it shows that even the most powerful figures are not immune to decline. No matter how high someone rises, history eventually demands a reckoning. In 1861, just 2 days after the events of April 9th that ended the Civil War years later, another April 11 would push the nation toward that very conflict. Abraham Lincoln gave a speech defending federal authority and the preservation of the Union, rejecting the legitimacy of secession. Within hours, tensions escalated further, leading directly into the outbreak of war at Fort Sumter the next day. This moment shows April 11 as a threshold. The moment before impact. The moment where words turn into action and conflict becomes unavoidable. As we move into the 20th century, April 11 becomes a day marked by some of the most extreme contrasts in human experience. In 1945, during the final days of World War II, American forces liberated the Buchenwald concentration camp. What they found inside shocked even hardened soldiers. Thousands of prisoners, starved, abused, and barely alive, were finally freed. It was one of the first major camps to be liberated, and it revealed to the world the full scale of the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. This moment stands as one of the clearest examples of April 11th as a day of revelation. The truth, hidden, denied, or unknown, was exposed in a way that could not be ignored. But even in that same period, April 11 holds moments of profound tragedy. In 1968, just days after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., the United States was still in a state of unrest. Cities burned, protests surged, and the country struggled to process the loss of one of its most influential voices for justice and equality. April 11 sits within that tension, a day where grief had not yet settled and the future felt uncertain. Then in 1970, another moment of global significance occurred. The Apollo 13 mission launched from Earth, carrying astronauts on what was intended to be a routine journey to the moon. Instead, it became a story of survival. An explosion crippled the spacecraft, and for days the world watched as the crew struggled to make it back alive. Against the odds, they succeeded. Apollo 13 represents April 11 as a day of crisis and human ingenuity. It shows how quickly things can go wrong and how determination, intelligence, and collaboration can pull something back from the edge of disaster. April 11th continues to carry meaning into more recent history as well. In 2001, a Dutch court ruled that internet service providers were not responsible for copyright violations by their users, an early legal decision that would shape the future of the internet and digital responsibility. It's a quieter moment, but one that reflects how the world was beginning to shift into a new, interconnected era where old rules no longer applied cleanly. Looking across all of these events, April 11th reveals a powerful pattern. It is a day of exposure. The exposure of human brilliance in art that pushes beyond limits. The exposure of political power shifting into new forms. The exposure of human cruelty revealed in its most extreme forms. The exposure of vulnerability when even advanced technology fails. The exposure of resilience when people refuse to give up. April 11th does not hide anything. It brings things into the light, whether they are beautiful, terrible, or somewhere in between. It is also a day of thresholds, moments where something is about to change, but hasn't fully changed yet. The speech before the war, the launch before the crisis, the liberation before the world fully understands what happened. It exists in that space between realization and consequence. And that is what makes it powerful. Because in that space there is still a choice. History shows us what happened on April 11th, but it also shows us what could have happened differently. It forces us to confront not just the outcomes, but the decisions that led there. And that brings it back to us. Because every day we live is another version of that threshold, another moment before something begins, another moment where action or inaction matters, another moment where the future is still unwritten. Thank you for watching or listening. This Day AI presentation for April 11th. This one was layered. A lot has happened in these 24 hours going back in history. Let us reflect on the past, be aware of the present, and shape our very future, if it is possible. We will do it here at Day AI. See you at a later date.